Cool. Oh, connecting. Here he is.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Chris. Thanks for
Hey
joining.
Tina.
Hi.
Yeah, good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a beautiful day here.
Gorgeous.
Yeah,
Have you had cold nights?
we have. Yeah, I was talking. My wife is a little disenfranchised with our gardening this year because typical farmer, push that envelope. How soon can I get the plants in the ground? And we had so many starts that I was like, I'm gonna risk it with these, and we got a late frost and things died. So she was bummed.
Oh.
But we got lots of starts to go in, so it'll be fine.
Yeah. Did you lose your pumpkins?
My giant 1,000-pound pumpkins, I lost all but one. So I'm gonna have to reseed those. Yeah, I was kind of bummed.
Yeah.
That's my first time ever messing with a award-winning pumpkin seed. Figured it'd be a fun thing if we had to forklift a pumpkin out of here.
You have one. It might be the one.
It might be the one. Yeah, it survived in spite of things. Hey, Tina, if you give me just a second, I'm gonna get just a little bit of firewood to start the fire.
That's amazing. You go for it.
I'll be right back.
Okay. I'm so excited. So who's going to Boise this summer, man? We gotta get there and spend some time together and inoculate our bodies with all the antivirals we're gonna need for changing our world. Be covering how and why to use it. Yeah, I mean, I could start a little bit. I mean, potassium has an interesting place in the plant world, and the reason I think sunflowers are so cool is because, think about it, they're growing in the desert. Like they come up, they're hardy, they come up before the frost. They're one of the first presenters, and they thrive in any environment, including drought. And one of the qualities of potassium is that it boosts the metabolism of the plant. It's a protein synthesis kind of thing. It maintains the water balance in the plant. It's the one thing that's present in the stomata of the plant that opens up during the day. So it kind of has this so it's like it does that action. The more the plant can open up and receive what it needs to, the more vigorous that plant is going to grow and the bigger it's going to produce and all that. So it's a drought tolerance, it's a pest and disease resistant kind of a thing. It doesn't form any compounds. Chris, turn your volume down.
Sorry. Messing with, you're like hearing it loud and clear. Hold on just a sec. I'll turn it off. I'll listen to you on that.
I kind of like it.
There you go. Probably
there we go. Yeah, and potassium deficiencies don't really affect the root mass. They sort of affect above ground. So it really is kind of a major component when it comes to how the plant is going to do in a season, especially with drought. And we're going to be, in Colorado, we're seeing a lot of extremes in weather. And the sunflowers are they're just so resilient to come and do what they do. Potassium's huge. And I've been playing a lot with boron, and potassium and boron work hand in hand to do kind of the same processes. There's a week-long KNF intensive that Chris puts on in Boise. Yes, there is. And I'm telling you, I practiced KNF. Well, I didn't practice KNF. I thought I was practicing KNF for a good year before I went to Chris's class. And there is nothing like a hands-on class to teach you what you need to know about so many of these little details that they have to be shown. You have to taste it, smell it, see it, and then you know it, and then your body knows it, and then you get to go home and practice it.
Your nose doesn't forget.
Nose does not forget. Oh, it's so true. Let's see what else. The chart. I'm going to ask it. No, I'm not going to ask a show-stoppable question. I'll ask it in a different way. I'm very curious about the biochar aspect of the WSK. Because Chris, I've been extracting it using it as a mineral, and that's not KNF. So I'm very curious because biochar is fascinating me right now. I'm using it a lot in my soil mix. I sort of was listening to Master Cho's videos and put together a soil mix that he suggested, and I'm in love with it. I transplanted all my house plants, and like they're so happy, and they like look at them, they're like crazy happy. Well, that one's not, but I'm in love with char.
All right. Well,
Okay.
now I feel like I want to. So typical Hawaii, fashion. Born and raised in Hawaii, or back and forth some to California, but we're slow motion. The process is, everybody comes over for dinner and they get involved in the cooking process and everything. Whereas like move to the mainland and everybody's like, oh, if I invite you over for dinner, when you walk in the door, we're sitting down to eat. So different culturally from. So apologize. So
I love it.
for starting the fire now, but here we go. We got the fire going. I'm going to talk a little bit about what you need to do this. Does that make sense? All right. So today we're going to use a Dutch oven. It's a simple tool for making small batch biochar. Just really, really useful. So in here, I have some pre-charred sunflower, the head, the stalk, etc. We'll go a little bit longer on this. I pre-charred it, so it'll take a very short time to kind of finish up. And then we'll start some sesame stalk, just to show kind of how to use that material as well. So this is black sesame stalk, full of potassium. You can also use asparagus if you're an asparagus grower, especially if you don't want to like take away from your produce. So you don't want to take your wonderful asparagus heads that you're going to take to market. Those big photosynthesizing kind of vegetative heads that you let the asparagus grow. So in asparagus farming, you are letting some of the asparagus kind of go to seed, go to flower, so that it's photosynthesizing and bringing energy down into that plant. You don't want to harvest 100% because you'll lose long-term, you'll lose production in that asparagus patch. So you let some of them go and get really big. Those big heads full of seeds and leaves, etc., are perfect for making biochar, especially at the end of the season when they've done their job, they're starting to harden off or dry out. Taking all of those and making your WSK with that is a great material. Sunflower. So sunflower, asparagus, these concepts isn't something I was taught by Master Cho or learned in Korea, but it is in line with the natural farming concepts in that he said, you got to figure out what works. This is how it works in Korea. You got to figure out how it works in mainland USA or in Hawaii. So what I've done with that, if you want a little bit of kind of the contents of potassium, ppm, you can go over to, the video's frozen?
Not me.
Okay.
Not.
It may be for them. As long as you can see
Oh.
me, then we got a live feed. So not a lot of people grow sesame in the U.S. It's just not something super common, and because of that, we didn't have access to this part of the ingredient list. But if you go over to Aquaponic Growers, I think it's a Facebook group, or Aquaponic Cannabis Growers, maybe. It's moderated by Steve Reisner. In their file section, they have a document put out by Duke University that has kind of the accumulator list of all kinds of plants where you can get a feel for kind of the content of some of these plants that are common to you. So maybe you don't have access to sunflowers or, asparagus or sesame, what other things are just crazy off the chart in potassium where you can extract that. So sunflower and asparagus is way up there in the potassium levels, and you can jump in there and learn about that. So great substitute for us in the U.S. because most people have sunflowers, and it's just a readily available thing. So yeah, so first step is charring our material. So this is mostly done. I'm going to throw it on, and we'll let the fire go to work on this, finishing up. Now the key to biochar is a limiting of the oxygen you're allowing to come into your material. What that does is it causes a kind of releasing or a discharge of the syngas, which is kind of the nutrients, if you will, or a lot of the other compounds in your material, and it leaves behind a lot of the mineral and carbon structure. So we're going to go ahead, leave the lid on our Dutch oven, which allows a little gas to escape with pressure, but it isn't allowing oxygen in to turn this to ash. We won't get a white ash because of the lack of oxygen. So that's key for the biochar process. So I'm just going to throw that right on top of the fire, stick it in there, and we'll let that heat up. I got to get a hot mitt. And that should be done in pretty short order because it's already mostly done. And then I'll show you kind of chopping up our sesame and loading it. But the basic recipe for this is I'm going to throw my headphone on. Can you hear me all right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Basic recipe is that we take this finished biochar, we throw it in a sack here. I'm going to use, this is a nut milk bag. You can get these at your kind of local natural grocer or something like that. You can use a cloth bag. Cotton works great. But you need a tea bag kind of for this part. And so you throw that in at about a 1-to-10 ratio. You can use a little bit more char if you want, but don't overdo it. Don't do 50% char, 50% water, because you will just waste. It won't all go into solution. You'll be wasting some of that char. So you're better off using about a 1-to-10. And with this, we don't use vinegar. We use water to extract. And just that that sitting in water, there's enough pull from the water to get some of our potassium into solution. We have a water-soluble potassium at the end. You can agitate, every couple days, just give it a little, just like you do if you're making your English breakfast tea, take a little dipping of the tea bag, and salts work way better. Yeah, man. Yeah. You go with that.
Yeah.
No, it's true that lots of people grow with those kind of things, and I'm not an anti to farming methods as much as I'm an advocate for ways that we can do it less expensively and with great yields to affect the bottom line of the farmer. So if I can get the same yields and as good or better quality while spending a tenth as much, we're in a better place financially, and that's a big deal.
And in concert with the microorganisms, so subtle is better in that way. All
right. 1 second. I'm gonna fill up a bucket of water and get myself a Coca-Cola.
Wait, Coca-Cola. Now I want a Coca-Cola. Yeah, right. We're talking KNF up in the house, yo. I do salts. I know, it's crazy.
No, it's, what? People like to troll a little. That's what the internet's for. If you don't have trolls on the internet, I'm not calling you a troll, man. But if
Yeah,
you
no,
don't
no,
have,
I
if you
was.
don't, if you don't
That was
have
me.
people throwing stones, you know, what good is it?
Yeah,
We'd all
right.
get bored. We only like negative news anyway. Be right back.
Okay, watching that char go down. Yeah, I have a egg, one of those egg, yeah, fancy. When I used to have money, when I bought toys, I have an egg barbecue pit that I put a crock down in like that and build a fire up around it. It's really effective. I do charred rice hull. Oh, he is. Yeah, he's awesome, right? Christ, we love him. So yeah, charring rice hull is amazing too. Lots of silica in that. So we love negative news so much that it's got us locked in our houses. That's how much we love it. Just give the microbes a chance to speak. Mm. Who is? I can't. So what did you guys have for breakfast this morning? I want to know. I had granola and a banana, 2 bananas actually. Can't have killed coronavirus. Well, I mean, okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about viruses and pathogenic stuff. They're mostly opportunistic, right? And nature abhors a void. It's always wanting to be filled by life. Nature is prone to life. That's what life is, right? So when there's a void, when we've killed off all the beneficial organisms, then the things that come in are the very pathogens that are going to hurt us, because that's the only thing that can survive. So the way to work with that, and also in concert with our immune system, is to bring in a biodiversity of organisms that then sort of do the work of overpopulating and allowing for an environment where there's a communication and a community that goes on within our systems and in our plant systems and in our soil systems that are in concert with one another and thrive accordingly. So yeah, microorganisms have everything to do with helping us deal with pathogenic viruses. That's why we should all get together in Boise, so that we can all hug each other and get our immune systems functioning and learn about KNF from Chris Trump. When's your class, Chris?
Class is, I think, the first or second week of August. You can find it if you go to naturalfarming.co and go up to the tabs and click classes. You can get a link to it there. Yeah, it'll be fun. You're gonna come down. There's a bunch of people that have been doing this for years now that are going to be returning, get to share their experiences, and they end up being a lot of your hands-on teachers. Yeah. So, Tina, what's your experience been? I mean, you've been playing with this now. What kind of results are you seeing as far as changes in the garden?
Well, I applied it for the first year in my indoor grow, my cannabis grow. I only applied it to the cannabis, and it was instantly dramatic, especially in terpene expression and just overall quality of the medicine. And then in deriving the medicine, like I do spagyrics or alchemy as well. So just having the final expression through medicine is it's just mind blowing. But last year I applied it in my outdoor garden, and it just blows my mind. I walk out there and I lift up the areas of wood chips, and there's just massive amounts of hypha, and they're all at the root they're all at the root like of my garlic. I mean, they're doing the job that we know they're supposed to do. They're just out there doing it, and because they're indigenous, they've survived the winter and they're thriving the season. So yeah, it's mind blowing. Every
Very
day I go
cool.
out there, it's mind blowing.
Yes, this is a Mexican Coke. It's the only Coke I love. And it has very simple ingredients. Instead of like a 20 ingredient list, it's like a 4 or 5 ingredient list. And Yes, Mexican Coke advertisement. I get paid for this. Just kidding.
You can
That's
break
super
down metal
cool.
with that.
Yeah, you can. You can. Cops carry it if there's an accident. They carry it in the back of their car to totally dissolve if there's a blood. That is, it's gone dark, but if there's blood on the street, they'll dissolve it with Coke. Yeah, you can completely decompose a slab of meat in like 24 hours. Drop it in a thing of Coke. So really good for your insides, right? Cleaning out
Yeah.
the. Um, that's cool, Tina. To see those kind of around and communicating with your garlic balls, and that's pretty fun. It's, I don't
Yeah.
know, it's kind of, as much as natural farming is a method, my favorite aspect, or the thing that I find that I want to most communicate, is what we're trying to do is continually understand nature a little bit better. Science is wonderful for that, and we're actually pushing on trying to understand as soon as possible in the scientific community how microbes make fertilizer. Monsanto's number one R&D expenditure for between 2017 or I think it was 2017, 18. This is just when I was researching it, and I was talking to a guy. His whole lab in San Diego was rented for this research. And how do microbes make fertilizer is the question they're asking. And the reality is, microbes in community is something we know very little about, even in the whole of the scientific research community. We're just beginning to understand. Yes, we can pull out one microbe and kind of turn it around. What does it do? But I'll use the example of human communities that if you take if you're an alien and you take a blacksmith shop and you look at it in isolation, why does this guy keep making tools? Why does this guy keep playing with iron? It doesn't make sense until you look at the farmer who's attaching that tool to the back of a horse or a tractor. It doesn't make sense in isolation. And we have sometimes skewed or limited views of what microbes are good for if we isolate them and don't understand that they're a part of a community. This thing that they're producing might be one step in a chain of steps to produce healthy plants. And so it's really a fun journey. And in natural farming, getting stuff like this, where I'm telling you to go look up the accumulation of nutrients that plants. I am sitting in the heat zone of this fire. I'm going to switch sides. It's already a warm day. They say smoke follows beauty, right? Just, but to look at taking our natural environment and getting some of our necessary crop nutrients from it. It's such a cool thing, and a kind of liberating thing for a farmer who maybe had to go to the salt store, where they're not getting anything. Here, I'm in quarantine and I'm producing all the farm nutrients for our farm, in our house with my kids, and it's drinkable. So fun stuff.
Right. Yeah, I want to talk I want to talk to you sometime about the the anaerobics too. Like, that's been a
Facultative
really
anaerobes, yeah.
Yeah, it's been really interesting because like I have really clay soils, so the places where the stuff I've been gathering that's doing best has been in the sort of wood chip areas that I've been able to build. But when it comes to my clay soils, it's been really a different kind of learning process, that what's actually eating the clays and making them a plant available are this whole same kind of diversity, but deeper down in the soils of anaerobic communities that are very much in this kind of layered consortium of activity that just brings a whole new level to this expanded awareness of nature that we learn by practicing Korean natural farming. It's beautiful.
Super cool. Yeah, they're cool in that I'm actually going to jump on with some people at the Future Cannabis Project um, later today, and
Yeah,
I'm sure
two, right?
I think at 3 my time,
Okay.
but I don't. What time is it for you? You're in Colorado, yeah. We have
I'm
the
in
same time.
Colorado. I thought it was two, but yeah, definitely. You guys
I think
check
it's
in on
2
that.
Pacific.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm excited to see that. I love the Future Cannabis Project. They're amazing. They do good work. I'm glad you're going to be there.
And I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that. But the cool
Oh,
thing
good.
is, they're a lot of these anaerobes and facultative anaerobes. They don't do the same process with breakdown that like a fungi does, in
Mm-mm.
that they're processing things or breaking them down, but they're leaving behind. Yes, I am making. And this is going to be our WSK, water soluble potassium, and we're going to show how to make it in the next few minutes here. But they're the anaerobes. What's neat? So say like we get into organic and this composting, and you send away your compost for an NPK analysis, and it's nothing in comparison to typical, especially if you have a highly fungal compost. It's nothing in comparison to a typical salt or whatever. Um, Part of that is that fungi actually bring the nutrients into their body and create their body structure um, with those nutrients, and that to be able to see those nutrients that they put into their body structure, you'd have to get out the million Kelvin torch or whatever, and it's so it's tied up in our typical analysis methods for looking at nutrients. Whereas a lot of these anaerobes or facultative anaerobes, you're going to they're going to break things down, but they leave kind of the nutrients intact. So you're going to get a much better NPK reading if you're fermenting with an anaerobe,
It's
because
true.
they're not making the structures in the same way that these big aerobic microbes are. But what they leave behind is ready food for the fungi.
I'm going to
It's
show you something. You keep
all
talking. I'll
right.
be right back.
So yeah, the way that they can work in tandem is pretty incredible. And to say one's good and the other's not good is it depends what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish. And for me, farming trees, um, I actually want a very low bacterial ratio to my fungal ratio. I want 1,000 to 1 fungal to bacterial. What are we looking at?
So this is that swarm book, I'm just giving you all my secrets right now. There are no secrets in life. So look at the little bugs eating this. This is the clay that I made out of the facultative anaerobic bacteria. And there's like millipedes, like it's literally crawling with bugs, like every
Breaking
single,
it down. Yeah.
they're just eating like this was a whole ball. They're eating clay. They ate it. This is what they do. It blows my mind.
Well, and some of those bigger, things like worms and millipedes, part of what they eat is the microbes themselves. So when you're producing all kinds of microbes and getting that total quantity up, mommy and daddy worm are getting together and saying, "Hey, the food source is infinite. Let's make lots of babies." And that whole engine, it's kind of, think about like a giant diesel engine. You gotta kind of charge the glow plug um, to get that whole machine moving. Eventually you want the whole gambit. You want the big fungal life, but in nature that doesn't happen instantly. It's not an
Yeah.
instant thing. I try and kind of, we talk about, and kind of, especially people who live in the city, and they can instantly order anything. It, Sometimes it's like, okay, let's now step back and start to understand what is the speed of nature. How does nature work? And, and what's the speed of nature? And you know, people talk about these, you know, want to be moving towards that goal of, you know, nice fungal profiles in comparison to our bacterial profiles. And if you're starting from scratch, or you're starting with depleted soil, you're starting with, you know, solid clay, that takes a process. You know, I usually put it in the realm of 3 years to really be at full cycle, with the whole diversity of the microbial community. And those anaerobes and facultative anaerobes, they play a role in that.
Yeah, they really do.
Wapahi, yeah, cool, man. Where on the islands are you? I'm guessing you're in the islands. Waipahi. I'm probably saying that wrong. Cool. I'm glad your garden's going well, man. See, look at this. The smoke's now coming this way.
I know. It's following
Can't get away
you.
from it. All right, let's check our material. See if we got a whole bunch of char. So you want to be careful with this, because if you're checking it and you have a bunch of syngas built up in there, you don't want to necessarily open it right over the fire and get all that ignited, and it can totally ignite. So,
and it'll rush out the sides. It'll actually shoot out the sides.
yeah. Oops. So let's see. You see that? Here, we'll lean down. Let's have a look.
Ooh.
All right, so you see, if you were watching from the beginning, you can see how we have a pretty good change from what we started with. I had a little bit leftover material as far as, ooh, this is hot. Little leftover material as far as there's some little bit of green or plant structure, kind of that stuff left. I wasn't quite to biochar. I did pre-do this so we'd be pretty close and wouldn't have to wait very long. But now we have kind of like glass, you know, as far as this is really, really close to finished biochar. I think it's good enough at this point for what we're doing. So I am going to drop this in a bowl, and we will go ahead and begin with our water-soluble potassium biochar process. And then I'll show you making up some more if you're starting from the beginning with this here. Let me go ahead and drop this down so you guys can see what we're working with. And maybe I'm going to move a little bit away from our fire. There we go. All right, how are we looking? Can you see the Dutch oven?
Yep.
Sweet. Don't knock it over. All right, so we finished our biochar of our material. In this case right now, this first round we used sunflower. Next round what we're going to use is black sesame stalk, which we'll show you in a second.
Is there a difference between the dark sesame and the white sesame plants?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'll look at that Duke University accumulator list you mentioned.
Beautiful patinas on this. I don't know. Ooh. All right, let me drop it in. Watch. Look at that fall apart. Can you see that?
Yep. Nice.
Yeah, so this is completely charred at this point. Beautiful. You know, if I drop that on the ground, that'll just turn into 100 pieces. It's not, it doesn't have those organic compounds holding together its structure anymore. We've we've charred those off, and we're left kind of with the plant's, you know, minerals, if you will, not caught up in organic compounds. And that's what we want, because that's we're easily extracting. I got to be careful. There's a lot of heat in this. So as I have it open and exposed to the air, I'm going to start turning to ash quite quickly. And so I need to be careful with that. So I'm going to throw this in here to cool, and I'll throw a lid over it, or a cover, so that I don't melt my my bag with hot biochar. And we'll make a fresh batch here, using the sesame stalks. I'll show you that, and then we'll come back to my cooled biochar and make some WSK.
Gorgeous. Do you think that the conductivity of char helps with this particular process?
Definitely. We're so conductivity, kind of mineral. You know, I was just talking to Steve Reisner over at Potent Ponics last night, and he would take you know, he's demonstrating a filleting of a fish, and he'd take that fillet, and when he's done, he'd take a rag, you know, freshly caught tilapia or something. He'd take a rag soaked in a high saline solution. He'd wash his hands with it, and he'd lay it on the fillet in front of a big group of people he's demonstrating for, and the fillet would start to jump. This, you know, totally boneless, skinless fillet would start to jump on the table. He'd just freak everybody out. And that's just kind of that natural reality of conductivity and salt. So I need to cover this, or as it cools, I'll get some ash, and I want to kind of avoid that. So I'm going to go ahead and throw something on this to cover it, but I didn't think of that. So let me see what I got.
Wow.
Sorry, guys.
I'm going to try that experiment with a fish. I'm going to do that. I want that. Frankenstein.
Yeah, nerdy stuff. Here, I found
It's
something.
so nerdy. I did share this. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I shared this earlier, but I wanted to, like, I just read just like 10 minutes before we came on. 1 billion trillion electrons can be stored and exchanged in a single gram of biochar.
Very cool.
1 billion trillion.
Those are not useless facts. Those are important to understanding how nature works. That's cool. I don't know what to do with that, but
I don't either. It just means it's pretty active.
Totally.
I think the fish jumping said it all. So
I'm gonna just drop this in. I have my clippers to make sure it all fits, but I think most of it's already to size. A friend at Flavor Kit on Instagram gave me her black sesame stalks. I did not grow these, so thank you.
Flavor Kit?
At Flavor Kit. She's into
Flavor Kit.
She's into things that grow, and talks about them on Instagram.
Sweet. At Flavor Kit.
You can make this with fresh green material or dried material. Fresh green material will just take a little longer. If somebody asked me which is better, I would probably say drying your material is a little bit better. If you can, you know, keep it nice while you're drying it. You don't want it to degrade, you know, or rot or anything like that while you're drying it. So as long as you can dry properly, you know, hanging something in a cool, dark place is a good way to dry it. But yeah, if you don't have good control for drying something, then go ahead and use it fresh, and that will work as well.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
I'm learning something about IG Live right now.
What's that?
I guess I only have an hour. I have 1 minute and 30 seconds remaining. So,
well, what we can do is we can pause right now. Tell everybody you're gonna restart and start right back up
Let's do
if
that.
you'd like to. All right, go ahead
Let's do it.
and drop it, and I'll follow you as soon as I see you go live.
Okay, cool. Come back, everybody. We're going to do this right now.
I'm going to show you how to do it.
All right. Bye. Yay. Sorry, guys. I guess there's an hour to it. I'm glad you're coming back. Yay. All right, we're going to go. He's going to follow me soon. Good info, right? Oh, we're learning so much. This is what happens when we get together. We share information and we learn so much more than we thought we knew. Here he is. Here we go. View. Over, guys. It means you're trusting the process and you're here to learn.
Hey.
Hey.
So in this world of negative news and craziness, where are you finding your humor?
Me or in general?
In general, you.
Oh man, I feel like I was born for this time. I feel like I call it the great pause because I feel like we've been given this time to like just renegotiate our relationship with our world and with each other. And I'm also like an optimist. Like I just never stop being hopeful. And I'm in love with life and I'm in love with nature. And dude, it's like just to see the animals being affected in such a beautiful way. It makes me happy when the skies are blue and,
Heck yeah.
heck yeah. How about you? You've gotten to stay home a little bit, right?
I've gotten to stay home some. I like that.
Yeah.
My current comedy source is an Instagram page called Neat Dads, at Neat Dads. It's hilarious.
Neat Dads.
Yeah, it's basically endless series of dad jokes.
Oh, sweet.
In that realm.
Neat as in N-E-A-T? Like
yes.
Neat dads, like what dads usually aren't.
Yeah, well, or what dads think they are.
oh, like neat dads. Okay, I get you.
All right, jumping in here with our material. So I just filled it up. You can pack it. We can fill this to the brim and fill every slot totally, or we can fill it loosely. It's up to you. Packing it's great in that you get the maximum kind of accomplished with your fire or whatever you're doing. So however you want to do it, but pack it or loose, wet material or dry, either way works. How much you make doesn't matter. It's how you mix the ratio of water and your finished material that does matter. So we're going to do that right now. Our biochar from sunflower's cooling, and we're going to throw this on the fire just to show you, step 1 to 0 or step 1 to finished with making biochar. So
Beautiful.
Bring this over. Throw it on the fire. I might need to stoke my fire a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, I do need to stoke my fire just a touch here.
I'm going to grow sesame for the first time this year. I'm pretty excited about
it. Why sesame? What benefit or reason? What are you going to do? For this reason. Oh, cool. All right.
For this very reason, but also to eat because I just love sesame. I want to just play with it. I'm also growing sweet potatoes to try to work with the sugar. I want to make IMOs using sweet potato.
Oh, we do that in Hawaii some.
Really?
We played with sweet potato. We put it through a wood chipper.
Oh. Cool.
And then dry it.
Okay. I was drying the whole potato over my stove, and I thought next time I'm going to so you chop it up fresh?
Yeah, chop it up fresh and then lay it out on a screen to dry.
And you're not cooking it?
No.
Oh.
You totally can cook it. I think that would be maybe even better. But
Because I think it converts to sugars, right?
yeah, totally positive. However, if you're making a lot of material, that's a lot to cook.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I
And we're
gotcha.
usually making 100-pound, 200-pound. So we have the, stuff when cooking, slop for pigs or whatever, we can cook potatoes, but you're still,
Mm,
it's a lot of work to cook that much material.
yeah, you're right.
All right, you can see me just fine.
Yep.
And our biochar has cooled so I can handle it. Um, and this is, how well can you see this? There we go.
Pretty shiny.
Yeah. And so I could literally crush this into powder with no effort. It's completely charred and black all the way through, and you get this cool, shiny patina. That's just a little bit of the kind of organic oils and compounds left behind. But yeah, really, really cool. Just neat to have this, what was solid kind of material, just fall apart in your hands. And so a really finished biochar is ideal for this. Now I have my tea bag structure. I'm going to go ahead and hopefully none of this is hot, but I'll be adding water to it immediately. So no, we've cooled pretty nicely, just warm. Otherwise I'd hurt my container here. So I'm going to make a gallon. And so 1/10 of a gallon by volume is about what I want for charcoal. And so this is about right. This is kind of the target amount. So I got about a softball here of material in my bag.
Hi, sister.
And so now what we're going to do, I'm just making tea. So clean, cold water. If you have a little bit of chlorine, I probably wouldn't even be that worried about it because we're not dealing with microbes here. And chlorine actually occurs in nature,
Thank you for
and
saying that.
helps to actually make available nutrients. So it's an interesting thing. In the concentrations we put it in our water and stuff, it's not good. But in general, it's not an evil thing. It's a part of our soil naturally. I would probably want to avoid chloramine. To negate chloramine, you can add humic acid, but that's not really helpful in this. So I am just going to go ahead and pour in my water over my tea bag here. And I want to cover this just to keep critters out. I don't need to seal it. It can be a breathable lid, but I want to keep critters from messing with my material. So now what I'm dealing with, let's see if I can switch you up for light purposes. What I'm dealing with is a container full of water with a tea bag full of biochar made with sunflower. And I'm going to let this sit for 7 to 10 days. And then I pull off my tea bag and I have my water-soluble potassium on the shelf ready to go. And you use it at a rate of 1 to 1,000 when applying. And you can add it into your maintenance solution or, you can add it in even at a rate of 1 to 2,000 in something like, vegetative growth formula, which would be maintenance solution plus fish amino acid. You could bring some of this in. It can be included in pretty much any of your applications as you need it. So really easy to make if you have the tools, and definitely easy to use as it's just sprayed on in foliar manner. So I'm going to set that on the shelf, and I come back to it in about a week. I mean, you have questions on that? I mean, that seem
So
pretty straightforward?
yeah. So are you going to keep it at 1 to 1,000 all the way through in flower?
Generally in use, I'm going to keep it at 1 to 1,000 or 1 to 2,000, meaning
Okay.
a lighter, even a lighter dilution, or diluting it more.
Okay.
You bringing it in somewhat regularly. I don't need a lot of it. This is easily taken up through the leaf tissue itself. So, yeah.
Nice. That's gorgeous. So simple.
Crazy simple. Yeah. And so now my biochar is going, and this will probably take, dry material like this will probably take a good 15, 20 minutes to fully make biochar.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we're having people ask about other plants. Have you heard of anyone using banana peel or biocharring banana peel for the potassium?
I haven't, and I don't know what the potassium content of banana peel is. I will take this opportunity to discourage people as much as I can from using bananas from the store to make your FPJ.
Yes.
Especially if they're full of pesticides, etc., from the typical banana creation in the world today.
Yes.
So don't go to the store and buy your gnarly banana and use it on your favorite things.
Well
Yeah.
said. Well said.
But yeah, you could try banana peels. I don't know offhand. The reason I gave you asparagus and sunflower is it's at the absolute highest in the accumulator category for potassium.
Beautiful.
So we're talking way higher than things you typically think that have potassium in them.
Yeah. Excellent.
Alaska grows sunflowers in the summer.
Yeah.
Somebody's asking if they can use bananas in Alaska. Yeah, you can use organic bananas if that's all you can get. Ultimately you got to use what you can get, and so I'm not gonna throw stones at you doing the best you can. I can't speak to bananas. I'd have to go look it up.
Yeah. There were just some questions there, and I almost feel like some people are concerned with the fact that we need to start utilizing our waste stream. If we can't stop eating bananas, then perhaps there's a use for the waste stream of it. So I think I'm going to hear it on that level. But I think if I had an option between sunflower and asparagus at the end of its season or bananas, I would definitely go with the sunflower or asparagus or sesame.
Yeah, and we can look it up. That sheet we talked about on aquaponics aquaponic cannabis growers. It's a page on Facebook, and they have a files section, and you can find it's by Duke University file on accumulators, and you can look up something that you have in your area that's potassium rich if you want.
Yeah, and I'm growing up tobacco and tobacco stem, and I'm using tobacco FPJ, and I'm using the vinegar after the FPJ, and I don't know the compounds that make it such a good one.
I got to correct myself real quick. Tobacco, I'm sorry, I just mixed up my things. Tobacco is the potassium source typically taught in Korean natural farming. I'm showing you sesame, which is a typical straight phosphorus source. Sesame is a phosphorus accumulator. And so, yeah, sorry about that. Tobacco is the typical potassium mixed ahead. But yeah, so
amazing. Oh my God.
Yeah, so tobacco stems would be excellent as your potassium source. And then, yeah, so with sesame, for phosphorus. So tobacco would be an excellent potassium source. Sesame for phosphorus, we would not then, typically when we use bones to make phosphorus, we got a calcium phosphate. With sesame, we're going for a straight kind of phosphorus. And so we do it the same way, char it, and then soak it in water for a phosphorus nutrient.
That's beautiful. I'm glad we got there. That's gorgeous. Okay.
Yeah.
And I just, since people are joining and maybe some new people have joined, I want to make sure everyone understands that you're doing another presentation this afternoon with the Future Cannabis Project.
Yeah.
Is it YouTube or Facebook? Do you know?
I think it's YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can check them out at the Future Cannabis Project, I think .com, and yeah, it'd probably be an interesting one. As you know, some people there, question the efficacy of green natural farming, and and I think that's healthy to have those kind of discussions on, what do you see in your attempts to, promote a regenerative agricultural society, and how do they differ, and so that'll be some of what we get into over there today.
Nice.
All in love, and yeah, should be good.
Nice.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to walk around a little bit and look at FPJ materials?
Sure, let's do that. Because it's a now thing. It's a now time to be doing these FPJs.
Yeah. So what don't you want to use for an FPJ? We covered it a little before, but you don't want to use conventional produce that you're buying at your typical store. Even organic produce, it's basically bleach washed. Even if it is organic, they're able to bleach wash it, and so you don't have any of your indigenous microbes or the things that typically are found on that plant to ferment itself. So you'll typically get some weird growths and strain of blooms of green stuff as whatever's in your air is trying to digest this foreign subject or item.
You might lose connection as you're traveling outwardly.
Sorry about that. I jumped off of Wi-Fi. I was walking away from the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you don't have a plant's, indigenous microbes that live on that plant and grow with it, you'll be relying on whatever's in your air, whatever was on the hand of the grocer or the 10 people that touched that banana before you. Those microbes are what you're going to be relying on to ferment your FPJ, rather than if something still has its microbes present, it can ferment itself in those microbes. So I just discourage from store-bought. Even if you live in a city, a short travel once a year just outside to find a place where some great healthy weeds grow abundantly would be great, would be enough. Another thing not to use is poisonous plants. You're going to be consuming this. You don't want to use. Here's an example of a poisonous plant growing here. Does anybody know what this is?
Oh.
It's Queen Anne's lace.
Oh.
And so this is pretty toxic and would make a terrible FPJ, because I wouldn't want to be introducing those to the veggies my kids are going to eat. And yeah, so definitely don't want highly poisonous plants. Another thing you would be only have to learn once, and you might not survive it, would be to use like a poison oak or poison ivy. You'd probably die as that material got into your lungs or your digestive system. So
Can I tell a tobacco story? Because someone
sure.
just asked. Because I do use tobacco FPJ, but I think I am only going to use it in drench. You don't want to use it as a foliar, because I decided to start eating some of my FPJs on a demonstration to some young horticulture students, and I had a minute amount of the tobacco FPJ. It didn't affect me right away, but I woke up the next morning, and as I got up to walk out of bed, I was walking in a different direction than where I was looking, so I literally had to focus somewhere else to walk the straight line. It has a neurological effect.
Whoa.
That is quite profound and lasts for quite a while.
All right. Yes, hemlock,
Don't
poison
do it.
hemlock. They're right. I think it might be synonymous with Queen Anne's lace, but it is hemlock. I think, called it Queen Anne's lace.
I
Um,
was, yeah.
so what
So
are
yes,
good things to use?
I love comfrey. Everyone's asking about comfrey. Comfrey's amazing.
Comfrey's amazing. So are dandelions. This is just a side pasture we don't cultivate. I'm in a new property. Dandelions are amazing. These guys, the leaves, the new growing tips, all amazing. I have this other plant here. It's a prolific weed. I know it's not toxic, as animals can eat it readily. I don't have the identification, but this stuff is great. Always healthy. The bees love it. No bug pressure, and it grows abundantly. The key is if something's growing abundantly without care, it is so good at accumulating nutrients from your soil in your area that it's going to be nutrient rich. If you start using, um, things just because you're like, oh, I know that tastes good, but it struggles in your area or it's anemic, that the nutrient density in that tissue is going to be actually less than just some weed that you think nothing about. So yeah, find things in your area that are abundant and thriving. We have this big patch of dock, which is an edible weed, and I'll be using FPJ, and I mean dandelion, dock, and a few other things to make FPJ actually tomorrow.
I
And
have a question about the dandelion.
yeah,
So at dawn, the dandelion flowers are not open. So do you think that there's a different mechanism at work when it comes to like that, the undifferentiated stuff that you're trying to harvest with hormones and enzymes? Is it different in a flower that's not opening at dawn, or do we harvest it at a different time?
so
Always at
yeah,
dawn?
always at dawn, and it'll be they're accumulating nutrients and processing the
Okay.
nutrients they accumulated through photosynthesis the day before, and
Okay.
um, they're not working hard to regulate their temperature. So they at the end of the day we're
Oh,
tired. A plant's the same way. At the end of the day, they're tired from photosynthesis and that big engine they're running and then regulating their temperature. Early in the morning, they've taken all this rest time to kind of process all their nutrients and store them for into their growing tips for new growth.
okay.
This is I have one in Hawaii, but this is my new toy for Boise. I've been missing my cement maker, so I'll be making my FPJ in this tomorrow.
Nice. That's exciting. That's a lot of FPJ.
Yeah, well, I'll only make it once. I just encourage people. You don't have to make new stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Make it once for a year, and you're done making stuff. As fun as it is to make this stuff, it's not really the point of natural farming. The point is productive crops with a low amount of effort as possible. And yeah.
Yeah. So I had an experience. How close to harvesting plants should you be making the FPJ? Because last year I would go out, harvest as much as I can, and then spend part of the day processing. This year I'm gathering smaller amounts and processing it almost immediately. Is there a difference in quality when you do that?
Um, yeah, I mean, ideally you do want to process it ASAP.
Yeah.
Um, having stuff like cement mixer and some other thing they use to process quickly
Yeah.
can
It
be
helps.
huge. Yeah. So I can get a big batch done first thing. But yeah, as best you can. If it takes you a few hours to chop everything, but you got it, you still have, those nutrients aren't flowing back down or leaving those root tips. You still have them
Sure.
there.
Okay.
And so we're kind of hopeful that we're not losing a whole lot in the processing time.
Sweet.
But I
Cool.
don't have a data-driven answer on that for you.
Yeah. That sounds good. Gorgeous.
Totally. Let's do a quick peek and see how charred we are so far on this material. So we just put this on, 10 minutes ago. I'm gonna burn my bench here. That's okay. Look
Oh,
at that.
pretty. That's so
Yeah.
pretty.
So we're a good way on. Okay, I got to put that on. So right away, just by taking that off, because of the heat, I started ashing. So I've lost some of my material by checking that. Because of the heat, as soon as I exposed it to oxygen, right away in the center, you might not have been able to see it, but ash started forming, and I started losing material quality. So it's a really important balance between oxygen in this process. So we want to make sure that lid stays on nicely, so that the material cooks outside of an oxygen-rich environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there a different quality in biochars depending on your region? No, not so much.
No, yeah, it's all the process. Quality
Yeah.
of process is
Yeah.
key.
Yeah. Okay. And how long can FPJ be stored typically? Like, and I know it depends on how you handle it and how you make it initially, but is there a decline in quality over time?
I typically tell people to make it for 6 months because that's absolutely safe. Um, However, if somebody's storing their material in the sun, in a hot environment, or don't have a good cover on it, you can cause FPJ to deteriorate just from poor storage technique. So finding a concrete floor in a cool, dark room, your FPJ will last for a good year. Um, and I have some that it just was processed properly and stored nicely, and it's good 5 years later. But
Wow.
sometimes stored improperly, or maybe too much moisture or too little moisture, FPJ can accumulate moisture and then go off, kind of start getting towards alcohols and vinegars, or too little moisture, FPJ can start to evaporate or lose moisture and get very much like a syrup, or even not syrup, more like a taffy, where it's so thick, and you'd have to re-add water to even, it comes out like a goo. You can hold it and slowly drip it, So
I've done that.
yeah, and that's just a running out of water in a dry environment. So it kind of depends on your environment. In Hawaii, it would be typical that things would accumulate moisture. In Idaho, it's typical that things run out of moisture. So same thing with IMO2. I'm spritzing my IMO2 in Idaho to keep it from overly drying out.
Okay. It's good to do that with your IMOs too. You don't want to let them dry out either. IMO2.
Could you spray WCA and W calcium phos until 2 weeks before chop? Not saying that you should, but could you? Anything microbial is a no. So I assume you're talking about cannabis, and what I have experienced in interacting with just great growers is the kind of absorption qualities that some of your plant has. And so what you want to be aware of is anything that could affect flavor, especially if you're going down to an isolate or some sort of after market processing or after chop processing. If the flavor of the vinegar or the flavor of the kind of calcium phosphate were to affect your quality, that would be a huge no-no. And so You need to be careful spraying on the leaves right before you're harvesting, and even in the flowering process, that you don't negatively affect flavor. However, a lot of these nutrients can be taken up in the root zone. So you can take the same principle, the same application rate, and put it in your watering system, so that you're getting this feed, but not putting it directly on those nodules of oils and all flavor that will absorb it and potentially affect the flavor. It going through the root system and going up to the plant will have a drastically different effect. It won't have such a kind of lasting flavor effect. So yeah, be careful. Caution to you.
Yeah, I usually do foliar up until about 5 weeks into flower, and then I go to drench. That's how I typically handle it personally, but everybody's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, and other growers only do foliar in vegetative growth, and once they get into flower, they only do drench. And other growers I've talked to, don't think it affects flavor at all. I am not, have to beg ignorance on that all because I don't know. I haven't tested it.
Yeah, and side by sides. Let's just
Yeah.
briefly mention the importance of that. Oh my goodness, right? It's how we're going to grow as a community.
Question about fermented seawater. Fermented seawater is already diluted when you made it. So yeah, you can go ahead. So seawater is diluted. I think it's a 1 to 30 seawater, a 1 to 700 LAB, and a 1 to maybe 300 FPJ. And those are already diluted quantities. And so you can apply it. You can also cut it 50% or more if you want it to kind of spread.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you for your time, Chris. Thank you for you're so generous with your time and your knowledge.
Pleasure. So cool to talk with you on all this and all the work you've done to kind of put this into practice and share it. It's neat.
Yeah. So he's got a class coming up in August, everyone. So there's nothing like a hands-on. Make sure you're tuning in. He's going to be speaking again at 2 with the Future Cannabis Project on YouTube. So if you want more of Chris, make sure you join that. And anything else we should add? Should we just call it good?
Yeah, I think that was great. I think we got to talk about all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah, me
and
too.
I went ahead and pulled my sesame stalks off the fire, but I'll leave them closed to cool so that I don't get ashing as it finishes. But we'll get a bit more charcoal being made as it just sits in this super hot pot. But I don't want to lift it before it cools unless I could cool it quickly. And because I'm not going to add this to water right away, I'm just going to leave it in there. And then this, you see that beautiful kind of patina color that's happening in the water?
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, so that's, kind of our nutrient, our mineral in there, diffusing into our water column.
Yeah, it darkened over time.
Yeah, and it'll continue to do that.
Nice. And 7 days on that, just like every other application.
7 to 10, yeah, you don't want to pull it crazy early, but if you go a day or two over, it's not the end of the world. Cool. But you don't want to leave it in there for a month. You can get some really weird things happening with just stuff growing and stuff. Well, good to talk to you, Tina. Yeah, keep up the good work, and yeah, cool to see how you continue to play with all of this and enjoy the journey.
Yeah, it's a fun community to be a part of, and it's just great to have you at the helm. You're a brilliant teacher, and I just, I learn a lot from you every time. So thank you.
Thank you. Cool. Well, until next time then.
Okay, until next time. Bye, everyone.
See you later.